Hi, welcome to another endorsement interview with the Times Editorial Board. I'm Doug Ross, editorial page editor. Here with me is Republican candidate for Indiana State Treasurer, Kelly Mitchell. Also in the room, we've got Krista Zavanovic, assistant managing editor. And on the other side of the lens, we have John Watkins, videographer for this. Let's begin with talking a little bit about your background, and how that applies to this race.
How far back do you want to go?
Well, a little before, early in your career and all of this stuff.
All right, well, people do often ask why I'm in politics at all, and I certainly had some experience, like most of us, high school, state government. College, I interned for John McCain. That was a great experience, but never thought I would actually run for office until I moved to Logansport, Indiana from Valparaiso. That's where I graduated. And at 28, I ran for county commissioner, and at 29, I was the youngest female commissioner in the state of Indiana, elected, first and only woman commissioner in Cass County. And I spent 8 years immersed in local government, and it was a wonderful experience. 10 years ago, I moved to Indianapolis, and for the last almost 7 years, I've been in the state treasurer's office as director of Trust Indiana, which is our state's local government investment pool.
Okay. Which we should probably talk about, since we have, kind of the insider's view, are there different ways you would handle investments now, or?
Well, the way that we have to handle investments is pretty much prescribed by law. We have a little bit of, room for creativity, but not much, as it should be with public funds, of course. Trust Indiana is currently limited to A1P1 banks. Working to open that to all Indiana banks, and that's one change that we can make it more reflective of all banks in
Indiana. Okay. Your former boss, Richard Murdoch, has been criticized by us, among others, but has been criticized for his handling of the Chrysler bankruptcy. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, what your views are on how he handled that.
I was in the office at the time, of course, not involved, because I was focused on Trust Indiana. From my perspective, it seemed that he believed that the law had been disregarded, and so he was oath-bound by his duty to the office to fight that.
Okay. Would you have made the same decision, you think?
That's a great question. As I'll compare it to my commissioner's experience, I suppose, because that's when I last took an oath of office. And if I felt that anything I was asked to do or was presented with flouted that oath of office in any way, I would have to fight that.
Okay. So we don't know in this case.
No, I was not in his shoes. I was not on that side of the desk making that decision.
Okay, fair enough. Your Democratic challenger, Mike Boland, is making the case that it's good to have different parties represented on the State Board of Finance, and I'm curious what you think.
Well, the State Board of Finance is small. It's the governor, the state auditor, and the state treasurer. I do believe a unified approach to our conservative culture in Indiana is a good thing.
Okay. So then if there was a Democrat in the governor's office, you would probably still want Republicans in the other?
Still want Republican representation?
Well, I mean, you're talking about conservative views, so.
Oh. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not following your question.
So what I'm saying is, do you think that there's any value in having, more than one political party represented among those three? Or should it all be, what happens if one of them's a Democrat? Should the other two be Republican, or?
Yeah, again, I'll go back to my commissioner days when we quite often had two Republicans and a Democrat, and we did work well together on a local level. On the State Board of Finance, I appreciate that it could be three Republicans making the overarching financial decisions for the state. You know, they don't set the budget. That is done by both parties. There's definitely input from both parties all the way up into the State Board of Finance decisions.
Okay. Well, you know, the board has gotten a lot of notice for, you know, creating this Center for Excellence in Career Innovation. Did I get that right, Cece? So, you know, which was outside the budget as approved by the legislature. Would you have done that if you were in that same position?
Again, I appreciate the efforts that go into making Indiana a stronger and more vibrant community and economy. And indeed, if you know that's what that kind of movement that they did results in, then I think it's a great thing.
Okay. We've heard talk about maybe Indiana parents need more awareness of the College Trust, the 529 plan, and I'm curious, you know, what you think maybe ought to be done with that.
Well, the College Choice 529 has grown 1,200% in the last 7 years. We presented it in June to the National Association of State Treasurers because it's getting attention nationwide for how fast it's growing. In fact, we had inquiries from Canada a couple months ago wanting to know how we're making it so successful in Indiana. And I still do believe there's more that we can do. I would like to emphasize the college choice part of it, meaning both looking at the debt college students are graduating with, and is there a different choice they can make as far as institution, but also emphasizing that this isn't just about college degrees, it's about any education that results in a license or a certification. So it's not just for a 4-year college degree, it's for further education after high school. And I want to be sure that we make that clear to people.
Okay. What do you think you might do differently in the office, and what do you think has been done really well and shouldn't be changed at all?
Well, the sole constitutional duty of the office is to invest the public funds safely. So obviously that's number one. And the legislature has, of course, given the treasurer a great many more responsibilities. The treasurer sits on 14 different boards and chairs 5 of those. You know, as chair of the 911 board for the state, that's certainly an exciting and dynamic and ever-changing part of the office. Since 1968, when Huntington, Indiana was the 2nd place in the country to have 911, Indiana has been viewed as a leader in 911. We'll certainly work to continue that. We rolled out text to 911 earlier this year in May. And we have, of course, the College Choice program, which, as I said, will continue to grow and to emphasize that it can be used for more than a 4-year degree. We have the Indiana Bond Bank, which is a fantastic way to work with local governments and partner with them on projects that need to be done. I am sure in the years ahead there will be ways to make programs that are really relevant to what's going on in Indiana, what the needs are of local communities as well. And then we'll continue the Public Deposit Insurance Fund, which is something we're responsible for. And you know, we do all this with less than 20 people. I think we run a very tight ship in the office, and I'm proud of the work we do. I will introduce an internship program into the office as well, though, because I know we will benefit from the fresh out of the classroom experience of top students in their colleges. So I'm excited about that.
Well, good. I know the colleges are looking for opportunities like that for their students.
Yes.
So we should talk about the 911 board. Of course, we all know what's happening with consolidation in Lake County.
Yes.
But, you know, in part of all of this discussion, we're talking also about, you know, not just, you know, the nuts and bolts of merging the call centers, but also if you are calling from a cell phone, you know, how do you know exactly very quickly, you know, where the call is originating from? And I know Tim Berry was working on that years ago. So, you know, what's your input?
What's the question exactly?
So, you know, what as treasurer, you know, with the 911 board, you know, what would you do to try to get Indiana to the point where you can track, you know, pinpoint more accurately and quickly
where the call is coming
callers,
from?
right, exactly.
Right. Well, do understand I haven't sat on a 911
Right.
board meeting yet, so I know that I have plenty to learn, and I'm really looking forward to that.
Okay. Chris, did you have questions?
The only question I have is, as far as, I guess, both the Indiana Bond Bank and how we invest our funds, is there some way to get a better return while still maintaining the safety of the funds? I mean, obviously, very great, fiduciary duty in that role, but it seems like the rates could be better. Do you think so? Have you investigated that or thought about that more?
So do you mean in with the bond bank in particular, or with public funds
With
in the
public
treasurer's office?
With public funds in particular.
Okay. Well, actually, the 0.91% that we had as a return last year is twice that of what Illinois brings in every month. It's not a bad return in this environment, especially when you consider how limited we are on our options of what we can invest in and what we can't. For instance, Trust Indiana, the fund that I run, is the legislature dictated that 50% of it has to be held in Indiana banks. So, which we certainly do. In fact, we always do more than that. But that affects our rate greatly. And then we're allowed to be in treasuries and agencies, same as local government units, because they're considered so safe. But because they're considered so safe, everybody wants to be there. It's a supply and demand. Nobody has to pay very much in order to have those funds. So we're really caught the same way the local governments are caught. Now, the local governments have an option that we didn't have until this year, which is to invest in municipal bonds. And those are probably what's paying the best right now.
Mm-hmm.
But the state has never been allowed to invest in those until July 1st of this year. So all that to say is we're very structured in how we're able to. And the treasurer's not a day trader or a gambler or anything. These are public funds that we're talking about. So we'll never chase yield. We'll do our very best to get a strong return. But I want to sleep at night knowing that the funds of Indiana are very, very safe.
Okay, fair enough. What makes you a better candidate than your opponents?
Well, obviously the experience in the office, walking in knowing so much about the job. And that's not saying, I don't have plenty to learn. I do, and I'm looking forward to that. But I have a deep understanding of the impact that the treasurer's office has on daily lives of Hoosiers. And my experience in there, my experience in local government, my vision for the office, which includes fiscal literacy. We haven't really touched on that entirely yet, but all of that, I think, makes me an excellent candidate for Treasurer of State.
Okay, speak on fiscal literacy, if you would.
Yeah, well, I have what we call the Save Indiana Plan, SAVE, students, adults, veterans, and educators. And I have ideas in each one of those categories of people about how can we work to make Indiana the most fiscally literate state in the nation. And the Secretary of State does an amazing job working on fiscal literacy as well. But across the country, most fiscal financial literacy efforts come out of the state treasurer's office. So I know that there are things that we can do to complement what the Secretary of State does, what banks do, what nonprofits do. I mean, there are a lot of efforts going on out there to raise fiscal literacy. But these are the areas where I feel like more can be done, and really excited to get to work making those things happen.
Okay. Are there any other programs that you feel compelled to begin in the like the fiscal literacy initiative?
Pretty sure that one will keep me busy in all those areas.
Okay.
Students, adults, veterans, and educators, as well as keeping up, of course, with the changes in 911, with looking at, there's a new program in the bond bank. There's always a lot going on in the office. It's a never a dull moment kind of place, which is fantastic. But also the internship program that I mentioned earlier, I'm excited to get that going as well.
Okay. Is there anything we didn't ask that we should have?
I don't think so. I think you are very thorough.
Okay. Well, thank you for viewing. This has been an endorsement interview with Kelly Mitchell, running for Indiana State Treasurer. Thank you for viewing.